I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, Velocities of Music, the best kept secret in music reviews. Tom and I are here today to give you VIMTV's top 25 songs of 2013. There were a lot of really good songs this year. I think, Tom, on your list you had like, what, 150?
Yeah, something like that I decided to sort. And really, I love just about all of them.
Yeah.
There's a great
There's a lot
stuff.
of songs that came out this year that were just excellent. And going through them, I mean, for every album that we reviewed, which we reviewed well over 150 albums this year, 4 a week for, 50 weeks of the year is a lot of it's about 200 albums, right? Well, we didn't get quite that far. But every, album we review, we have a certain number of track picks. And as we pick those tracks, I would put them into a playlist, and then throughout the year, and so, over the last month, going back and listening to all of my track picks from all these albums over the year and selecting favorites from that was really quite a fun process.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Putting it on shuffle and just letting it play through. The thing about, VIMTV, we review albums here. We're all about the album, the collective listening experience, one straight through listen. So when you take that thought and then apply it to songs, it's a little bit different because, you don't necessarily, what makes a song, what can make a song really strong are the songs around it. So you don't necessarily, this isn't a hard, fast list, but it's definitely just a list of favorites. Now, what makes a favorite song for me does not necessarily make a favorite song for Tom. I really like anthems. I like big songs that just go all out. I like big crescendos, big choruses. I usually like some sort of a hook or something very unique. I've noticed recently that I'm really liking songs that have some sort of really aggressive sound to them. Like a lot of the songs on Yeezus actually had that kind of aggressive synth sound that just kind of was grating. Things like that just hook me in. Now, Tom, I know that you have a lot of different tastes in songs too.
Yeah, for me, I love songs that are dark, usually have some kind of emotional appeal driving it, where I can really feel what, the vocalist or artist, it doesn't have to have vocals, but if it does, what they're really going for, what the message they're trying to communicate. I've also noticed that I really like songs that are split up into sections.
Yes.
Maybe have like a first half that's completely different from the second half of the song, but still blend together and succeed in their own separate ways.
So funny, we both don't like that generic pop structure.
Oh, no, because
everyone does it.
Yeah, right. But I would say that 2013 was almost more of a year for songs than albums.
I totally agree
More
with
than
that.
any other year that we've reviewed music, I had so many of my favorite songs that didn't even come from albums that were my favorite albums of the year, but just highlights that stuck with me throughout the year.
Now, Tom and I, while we may have different criteria that determine our favorite songs, really for albums we're pretty similar. We always end up valuing the same things pretty similarly. Now, you guys may have totally different opinions on your favorite songs, and that's awesome. These are just our highlights, the songs we've come back to over the years.
Over this year.
Over this year.
Over this year.
Over just 2013.
Yeah, that's right. But number 25, we'll start the list with one of those songs that I was saying came from an album that I didn't quite come back to the whole album, but man, this song. Number 25, Childhood's End by Magical Cloudz.
Can you see me caving in?
Childhood's End is a song that I absolutely could not get out of my head when we were reviewing Impersonator. Very kind of low-key, kind of electronica backdrop, but then the vocals, man, very evocative lyrics, and the performance just, I found really connected with me. I absolutely could not put this track
it was a clear highlight on that album. Up next at 24, Cloud Cult Sleepwalker off the album Love. Sleepwalker was one of those songs that was just instantly infectious with me. The way it starts off with the creepy bells, it sounds like, some sort of derivation of Carol of the Bells,
or like
famous,
a lullaby,
right?
Almost.
But then that song just, it turns almost demonic very quickly. It's clearly the most emotionally and dynamically intense song on Love, and just the aggressiveness that they showed. It has a lot of angst to it, and it has that sort of anthem feel. One of my top 10 favorite tracks of the year.
I really liked it as well. I know that I brought it down a little bit, but still, this was a song I kept coming back to also. I want to note that it's got kind of like a fun bounce to it.
It does.
But also that aggression you talked about, which is a cool dichotomy for a song to have. It really worked.
For sure. Good word usage there. That was nice.
Thank you.
Number 23 on our list, Arcade Fire. Nope. It's number 23, Typhoon, Hunger and Thirst. Not the album, but the song.
Yes.
Typhoon's song Hunger and Thirst, which isn't on the album Hunger and Thirst, but I think it might actually be referencing, because I'm pretty sure the lyrics are all about writer's block. But anyways, this song was one of those just slow builders. Typhoon is a band that knows the importance of dynamics in writing a song, and their songwriting is full of large dynamic contrast. This has a very orchestral feel to it at the beginning, but you know, it also has that kind of lo-fi indie rock songwriting that we have come to know and love from Typhoon. But what really gets me about this song is when he, you know, in the build-up for the chorus, the vocalist is singing about all the things that he could be, and then he goes, "I could have been a pop singer," and I mean, it's powerful. And for an indie rock band to, you know, like, come out and say, like, I could have been a pop singer in this definitive moment of rock and roll. I've never heard Typhoon rock out that hard, and it just totally sold the song for me.
Coming at number 22 is Arcade Fire.
Now it's
Arcade Never Fire. Over, Hey Orpheus. Yeah, I'm having some deja vu. Are you sure this one wasn't on there already?
I think we should do this now.
Okay. Spoiler alert. For us, It's Never Over was the clear highlight from Reflector.
Totally.
It was on the second half of the album, that kind of second disc for the double disc aspect, and it was just the emotional peak of the album.
Definitely the climactic point when you know, he shouts out, "Hey Orpheus." I mean, it brings you in, and it makes it a listening experience much more personal. And Reflector was kind of an impersonal record.
That's true.
Definitely a good track for them.
Yes.
Next on our list, 21, The Strokes' "Welcome to Japan." Welcome to Japan. This was on Come Down Machine, an album that was second overall for us as our favorite albums of the year. Welcome to Japan was a song that I initially had a lot of problems with. In fact, I hated this song. I think in the review I actually talked about how much this song just annoyed the piss out of me. But to tell you the truth, something about it stuck with me. I could not stop listening to this song throughout the rest of the year. And still, if I even think about that guitar melody, the, you know, quick arpeggiated guitar, I mean, it's just in my head constantly. It will not leave my head. Now it's stuck in my head, you know, scuba dancing touchdown.
That's like the best part of the song.
It is.
Moving on to number 20, we've got My Bloody Valentine with In Another Way. In Another Way is classic My Bloody Valentine.
It's but in another way.
Yeah, because it's MBV and not Loveless. Right. Exactly. So you got Belinda Butcher's classic kind of airy vocals, and then you have Kevin Shields just dominating guitar. And what My Bloody Valentine is notorious for is having their choruses, if you could call them that really feature guitar rather than vocals.
Right.
And man, that part that they do, that they kind of loop at the end and repeat several times, the guitar is absolutely hypnotic. And it's just, you get sucked into it. It has a bounce. It's got an edge. What a great track.
Yeah, one of the clear highlights of MBV.
Now going on to number 19, we've got Lord with Ribs.
The drink you spill all over me, lovers spit left on repeat. Mom and dad let me stay.
Lord's album Pure Heroin was an album that I thought was worthy of the hype and even the pop mainstream acclaim that it's gotten. Brilliantly well-written songs, and Ribs was a highlight of that for me. It captured that youthful nostalgia that the album is all about, but did it in a way where Lord's vocal performance I found to be very, very emotional, very easy to connect with, very authentic, great melodies. Yep.
Number 18 on our list, The OC's Toe Cutter Thumb Buster. Toe Cutter Thumb Buster was the definitive track for me off of the OC's Floating Coffin. It just has this guitar melody that it's just perfect. It could not have been written any better. The way it just cascades over you, and it just sets the tone. It's pretty early on in the album, and it just sets the tone for the rest of the album, what the listener is going to hear. It's one of those just stellar tracks that just perfectly sets up the album and just increases the comeback quality of the album.
And you hit it right on the head when you said it's all about that guitar riff. That guitar riff is just wonderful, but the vocals and everything else in the mix just helps.
Absolutely. Next up, number 17, the self-titled tracks from Indians Somewhere Else. Somewhere Else is the closing track to the it's the self-titled track off of Somewhere Else. But you know, you start off this song and it ends this album that's really gone all over the place in indie pop fashion, this indie folk / pop, you know, meld that Indians is doing. And, you know, this is a debut album that really caught us off guard. We really enjoyed a lot of just the very eclectic, folksy-esque songwriting that still had a lot of production value and a lot of comeback quality just in the quality of the songwriting throughout. But Somewhere Else was the topper because it really was an emotional track. It starts off and you have that organ sound and, you know, and then the vocalist comes in and it's just very emotive. And really, it's what sealed the deal for me as like that being one of the best albums of the year.
At number 16, we've got The Strokes with Tap Out. Jake, when we reviewed the new Strokes album, Come Down Machine, I believe I remember you saying that Tap Out, the opening track, was like the Hot Chip song that Hot Chip never wrote.
Yeah, it totally is.
It really is. It's a good way of putting it. But man, I could not stop coming back to that song. That was actually my second favorite track of the year, which is why it's on this list. And I
really liked it too. Yeah, I did bring it down a bit.
A little bit, but I don't blame you for that. I'm just glad it's on here because, man, I just find that Julian Casablancas' falsetto in that song with the guitar riffs, it is just the epitome of the new Strokes sound, but with their just stellar songwriting.
Yes, absolutely. Up next, number 15, Daft Punk's Get Lucky.
She's up all night to the sun. I'm up all night to get some. She's up all night.
Get Lucky was the key track for me off of Random Access Memories, Daft Punk's major album from this year that just kind of swept music reviewers, music critics across the board.
Even the mainstream.
Yeah. And Get Lucky is played, you know, on radio stations, but I think it deserves that because it's a great song. You know, obviously this song features Pharrell Williams. It's a very well-written track. The vocals are catchy, but really it's that guitar part that, I mean, it just gets stuck in your head. It's infectious.
You can't help but move to it.
Yeah, it's what makes it a great song.
Coming up at number 14, we've got Cult of Luna with In Awe Of. In Awe Of is the second to last track off of Vertical, and really the last true metal song on there. The closing track, which we both also loved, is kind of more a somber, morose, kind of vocal-centric closer. But In Awe Of, man, I mean, after the metal barrage that happens to you throughout the album, In Awe Of just even tops the game of what had already happened. And they do it with like a 3-note guitar riff. It's a super simple riff, but man, it just pounds. It is so powerful.
It's a great song. It's a great last metal track for the album.
Yep.
Up next, number 13, Vampire Weekend from Modern Vampires of the City, Unbelievers.
Got a little soul, the world is a cold, cold place to be.
Unbelievers may be the best written Vampire Weekend song to date. And Vampire Weekend are stellar songwriters. That is what has carried this group so far because with all the pretentiousness that surrounds Vampire Weekend's music, I mean, a little bit has to be, you know, some of their fame has to be just attributed to just blatant facts. These guys are great songwriters. Unbelievers proves it. With that, you know, just barrage of guitar melodies that comes at you and just the coyness of the lyrics. That's always been true in Vampire Weekend's music. This was a highlight track off of Modern Vampires of the City and definitely deserves to be on everyone's top tracks list of 2013.
And at number 12, we've got another My Bloody Valentine track. This time it is Only Tomorrow. Only Tomorrow is the second track on MBV, and it's really kind of the first true rocker from the album. And it's a great track because it resets up My Bloody Valentine as a band.
Yeah, it redefines their sound, really.
Right when those drums kick in and that warm wash of guitar and vocals comes at you, it just feels like home. And it's what tells you that, hey, this is going to be a classic My Bloody Valentine album with just great songs. Kicking it off with that one.
And even the vocals on that song really, I mean, just take the cake for me because it's just the melody, the layer of melody that it adds just makes this song super addictive.
Yeah.
Up next, at number 11, we have Magical Cloudz, Bugs Don't Buzz.
The cheesiest songs all
Bugs Don't Buzz was actually my favorite track of the year. It's the second to last track off of Impersonator, and it starts off with that piano, and then it's a very kind of slow tempoed track. The vocalist just kind of, caroons out in a very powerful manner. Some of the most beautiful, coy lyrics I've ever heard. The line, the cheesiest songs all end with a smile, this won't end with a smile, my love. I mean, like, I'm getting goosebumps right now just reciting that lyric because it's such a well-written line. This is, to me, one of the key tracks off of Impersonator, which, while wasn't probably the strongest album we reviewed this year, it had a couple key tracks that were just masterful, and this was definitely one of them.
I absolutely agree.
Yep. Up next, number 10, Vampire Weekend's Ya Hey. Ya Hey was my second favorite track of the year. And I gotta say, this track, while I loved it, I kind of felt like Tom didn't love it quite as much as I did.
We had a lot of arguments about this song when we first started listening to Modern Vampires of the
why
City.
is that, Tom?
The big thing that was a barrier for me was the chipmunk style,
like Alvin
high-pitched
and the Chipmunks.
vocals, and it just bothered me. It rubbed me the wrong way.
And to me, that's the sort of thing that I love, though, because it's that sort of, I don't want to say gimmick, but it's some sort of like songwriting device that it makes it super addictive. It makes it stick in your head and refuse to leave. It's things like that define a good song to me. And while that's my definition of a good song, it may not be Tom's.
Yeah, and while I still don't like the pitch shifted vocals as much, the rest of that song, it still doesn't bring the song down much for me, because the rest of the song is brilliant.
Yeah.
The melodies, the emotion, the lyrics,
and all the different structure
great.
changes that they do. I mean, it's just a brilliantly written track.
It's great. Moving on to number 9 is Kirin J. Callinan with Love Delay. Love Delay was actually my number 1 track of the year.
Deservedly so.
It's the closing track on Embracism, and after you've gone through that whole album and you've had some kind of like Depeche Mode / 9 Inch Nails style electronic and industrial, you've had some more kind of straight rock stuff, you've had
Even
some
like
kind of ambient
rock
type, and it closes with Love Delay, which is more this kind of like post-punk guitar noise styled anthem, and the first half is really just vocals and kind of an on and off noisy guitar, and then the last half just rocks out. But it is very anthemic, and that's what keeps me coming back to it. It feels upbeat, but the lyrics are still kind of dark and still kind of pessimistic, and that allure is just magical.
Yeah, it's surprisingly optimistic, but when you think about the lyrics, that contrast is what makes it such a diverse song, and it really just, it's addictive when you listen to it.
Yeah.
Number 8 on our list, Queens of the Stone Age, Fairweather Friends.
When the sun is gonna soar.
Fairweather Friends is one of like 10 just absolutely genius tracks off of like Clockwork, which was our collective favorite album of 2013. This song it's one of the shorter tracks on this record. You really hear a lot of, well, first of all, there's just an incredible guitar melody, as are most of the highlights on this record, but the way that the song just kind of builds, and it gets a little bit louder and more intense. We also get to see Josh Homme and his vocal. I mean, the vocals on this song are more intense, I think, than on several of the other tracks. The way it just cuts off at the end, and the lyrical message that it sends, I think, is super powerful, and just one of the clear highlights on this album.
He pours his soul.
He totally does.
So moving on to number 7, we're just gonna go to the next track on Like Clockwork.
All right.
Queens of the Stone Age with Smooth Sailing.
I'm burning bridges, I destroy the mirage. Oh, visions.
So this is likely to be the only time that on our favorite tracks of the year list, we literally have 2 tracks right in a row from the same album as they appear on the album.
But would you have it any other way?
No, I wouldn't, because these tracks are terrific. So moving from Fairweather Friends to Smooth Sailing picks it up with just this kind of like funk guitar, drum and bass combo, with just this attitude, just dripping with attitude. The lyrics are probably some of the most playful, but also the most aggressive on the album. And man, it is an engaging song that I always want to listen to again right when I'm done with it.
As soon as we're done filming this time, I'm gonna go listen to Like Clockwork.
Let's do that.
I have to.
Yeah.
I have to. Up next, number 6, John Murry, Little Colored Balloons.
Black nickel, a needle and a spoon.
Little Colored Balloons was one of the key tracks off of The Graceless Age, which John Murry is an artist that Tom and I weren't familiar with before reviewing The Graceless Age, and I'm relatively certain that most people out there really haven't heard of John Murray. For those of you who have had and you've listened to The Graceless Age, we're pretty sure that Little Colored Balloons will be one of your favorite tracks too. This is a long song. Starts off with piano. It's more just starts off like a piano ballad, but then it just kind of builds throughout. It tells, without going into too much detail, it tells a very, very harrowing story. The lyrics are really where the power and the emotion are at. And a lot of the other songs on the album reference this song. This is definitely the centerpiece for the entire album.
Absolutely.
But what makes it a great song is the build. By the end of it, John Murray is just belting it out, and it sounds like he's about to bawl at any moment. And that sort of just emotionality is just so powerful. I mean, you can't help but fall in love with this track.
Yeah, that song just kills me every time.
Every single time.
Going on to number 5, we're in the top 5 songs of 2013. We've got Youth Lagoon with Mute. So I mentioned at the beginning that I really love songs that kind of flow from one half into another half, that both have kind of their own identities but work together as one song. That's exactly what Mute is.
It is.
And both halves of the song succeed so well. There's so much emotion behind it. And while the last half doesn't even have vocals, it's just got this melody, this kind of Flaming Lips-esque melody. It's a very psychedelic kind of track. But it just cuts through, and it just hits me right here. I absolutely love this track. It was my 3rd favorite of the year.
Yeah, and Mute being the 2nd track on Wondrous Bughouse sets up the rest of the album, and that's one thing we were talking before. We flipped the camera on today. That Wondrous Bughouse, we weren't expecting that to be such an album listen. Year of Hibernation was definitely a track-by-track album, and for Youth Lagoon to come back with Wondrous Bughouse and make an album listening experience, it couldn't have been done without Mute and putting Mute at the beginning of the album. Very cool stuff.
Yep.
Number 4 on our list, The National, I Should Live in Salt. I Should Live in Salt is the first track on The National's latest record, and man, was it a doozy. It just was the most emotional song I think I've heard The National put out since a couple of the tracks off of Boxer. But this really is just one of just The National's better songs. We had the privilege of seeing this live in Kansas City, and man, it was incredible. The way the vocalist, when he goes up into his falsetto, I mean, it gives me goosebumps, and that's always a good thing.
It is a terrific song. That song, starting the album, the rest of the album always had trouble, to me, living up to that first track.
Yeah, it sure did. In Trouble Will Find Me.
It found him.
They did. They announced it, really. Up next, number 3 on our list, Coheed and Cambria's Key Entity Extraction 5, Sentry the Defiant.
That's a lot.
It's a mouthful.
Now be defiant, the lion.
Sentry the Defiant is, to me, the best song off of the Afterman, the Dissension, the second half of the Afterman duo that Coheed has put out over the last couple of years. Now, Sentry the Defiant is just a great rock song, and that's really what it comes down to. It's pretty progressive. It definitely lays the foundation for Dissension, in how Coheed and Cambria were definitely referencing some of their older, more post-hardcore work. It has a bit of a post-hardcore vibe to it, with more professional studio production and recording.
Yeah. But at the same time, it's just no BS, good rock, with really great vocal melodies, great guitar work. I could not get that song out of my head. Moving on to number 2 is another great kind of no BS rock track, and that's Foals with Inhaler. So while Jake and I weren't a huge fan of Holy Fire, the new Foals album, Inhaler is the 2nd track on the album, was just phenomenal.
Yes.
A rock track that I kept coming back to. It had a little bit of an industrial edge to it, probably given the fact that it was produced by Alan Moulder. But the chorus especially, I want to talk about the chorus of that song because it takes so long to build.
It does.
It's just this extended chorus that just keeps going
They're
and going.
just playing with you.
Yeah,
Exactly. It's a mind game.
Right when you think it's about to hit a peak, it builds a little bit more and then just explodes into this instrumental rock out, and I can't get enough of it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And really, it didn't fit that well on the album.
No.
But the song itself is just fantastic and totally worth being our 2nd favorite track of the year. Our 1st favorite track of 2013, number 1, Run the Jewels, off their self-titled album Sea Legs.
Try not to walk crooked while this anchor's drop. But I've been out on them choppy ways and it's hard.
Killer Mike and LP teamed up for Run the Jewels, and really it was a match made in heaven. These guys have been working together for the past few years, and so to just make it official and come out with a duo album was very, I think, just welcomed by all the fans. And actually, we've reviewed both Killer Mike and LP in the past and liked both their work, so seeing this together, we liked this album a lot. It was a little short, but one of the highlight tracks was Sea Legs. It, to me, was the definitive track. You know, you have their very aggressive vocal styles, their great rhymes, their lyrics are fantastic, but what made Sea Legs so cool to me, what made it so intriguing to me, was I think that has to be some of LP's best production work. Just period. The best work that he's done. And really, the way it starts off and then just slowly builds in, and then, I mean, that track gets very intense by the end of it.
And it's really, at its core, a somewhat complicated track that's just packaged very simply so that people can digest it. Because it's kind of, if you look at it on the surface, it's kind of verse, chorus, and that's like it. But if you listen to the background, you know, that production, the actual things that are composing, they're coming and going all the time. Within each verse, you've got things adding to the middle of it, you got them dropping out by the time the chorus comes, and there's this whole dynamic flow to it, plus just some of the best rapping I have heard in years, hands down. It is so fantastic. The lyricism, they also kind of poke at some mainstream rappers and assert their dominance over the genre, and it succeeds because they can back it up with the skill to actually do it.
Tom, I just noticed, we just picked a hip-hop song as our favorite track of the year.
That is not very common for us.
For two guys who get accused of not reviewing a lot of hip-hop music, we just showed them.
Yeah, darn right. Sea Legs it is for 2013.
And that wraps up our 25 favorite songs from 2013. What were your guys' favorite tracks from 2013? With songs, there's always a lot more of disagreement of what is the best song. Even Tom and I disagree a lot on what is the best song. And we have to go, reach the far lengths of arithmetic to develop a system that we can actually...
spreadsheets.
Right. That just comes with me. But, we're really interested in what your guys' take on this year was. This has been a very prolific year for a lot of artists releasing great material. And so there's plenty of songs to choose from. Let's start a conversation about it at www.velocitiesandmusic.com or youtube.com/velocitiesandmusic. As always, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook. And guys, thank you so much for being part of the Velocities and Music community. Without you guys, we would not be here today, 4 years strong. And going into 2015, we're going to do a lot of more of this to come. Thank you for watching. I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, moving music critique forward.